So we're now on the top of Daf Beis Amid Beis. Dilma Asilin Pule, when we're talking about a Mayan. She Lo Yatza Mitchila. I'm sorry. If it's a case of a Mayan, She Yatza Mitchila, is then Dilma Asilin Pule. Avo Mayan Shelo Yatza Mitchila, Dilo Asilin Pule. So if it's Lo Yatza Mitchila, which means it's a brand new one, then Rabbi Yehuda is concerned about the collapse situation. But maybe Rabbi Yehuda be Mekil, in a case of a Mayan Shelo Yatza Mitchila, it's an old, ancient Mayan. Dilo Asilin Pule, we don't have to be afraid that it might collapse. And therefore, Filu Beis Habal Nami. Maybe Rabbi Yehuda would be lenient, even in the case of a Beis Habal, where presumably there's no great loss, and it's only larvacha, but Rabbi Yehuda will be matter as long as there's no chashash of Dilma Asilin Pule. Now, our Mishnah says that even a Mayan Shelo Yatza Mitchila, where there might be a chashash of Dilma Asilin Pule, nevertheless, it's mutal hashkos sada beis hashlachim, meaning that all we need, according to our Mishnah, would be a hefseid to prevent a hefseid. So therefore, it comes out that Rabbi Yehuda is not reconcilable with our Mishnah. So the Gemara rejects that kash. Im kain, if you're telling me that Rabbi Yehuda holds that if it's a brand new spring, if it's an old spring, right, lo yatza mitchila, then you're allowed to be mashkin even in a Beis Habal, and all Rabbi Yehuda's objection and his prohibition was only in a case of yatza mitchila, that it's brand new, is then masmisin aman tarmet, amongst all the sheet that's quoted in this brisa, by process of elimination, we don't have one single shita that can be reconciled with our Mishnah. So here in my Gemara, he goes through all the three shitas. Let's do that. He says, according to Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, our Mishnah is irreconcilable because according to our Mishnah, even in a case of hefseid, you must have a limited tircha. If it's tircha yiser, it's awesome. According to Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, we don't find that he prohibits tircha yisera. All that counts, the only factor to be considered here is hefsed. It can't be Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Meir is making on the other extreme. Our Mishnah says that you're not allowed to be mashke on Chol Moed, a stay habal. Whereas Rabbi Meir said that you're allowed to be mashke b'moed, even a stay beis habal. Now we can take Rabbi Eliezer ben Azariah. That doesn't work out with that Mishnah, because our Mishnah says you're allowed to be mashke stay beis hashlachim, even if it's a brand new Mayan, a Mayan sheyatza mitchila. Whereas Rabbi Eliezer ben Azariah is of the opinion that even a stay beis habal is prohibited if it's a Mayan sheyatza mitchila. Ella, we have no choice, and we have to assume Rabbi Yehuda that we have to figure out a way of reconciling Rabbi Yehuda with our Mishnah, and therefore we're going to assume that according to Rabbi Yehuda, Loshna Mayan sheyatza mitchila, Loshna Mayan shelo yatza mitchila beis hashalchin in beis habal lo. That Rabbi Yehuda, in the case of a situation where if it's a field that needs irrigation, a beis hashlachim, then it's always mutter, and if it's a beis habal, then it's always awesome. Again, we're talking about irrigating. So again, let's go through it again. If it's a case of beis hashlachim, Rabbi Yehuda would be matir, hashka, straight across the board. Even in the case of a mayan, shelo yatza mitchila. On the other side, if it's a beis habal and there's no element of hefseid, then it's prohibited. You'll ask me, so why does Rabbi Yehuda emphasize Mayan Sheyotza Mitchila, as if to say it's only, in other words, that in a case, excuse me, Rabbi Yehuda is matir only a beis hashlochim. In a case of a Mayan Sheyotza Mitchila, it's okay, but a Mayan Shelo Yotza Mitchila, maybe it's asur. So we're going to say no. Why does he mention Rabbi Yehuda in the Brisa Mayan Sheyotza Mitchila, which implies that if it's Lo Yotza Mitchila, it might be asur? That's Lo Dicha Chakocho Rabbi Meir. The Brisa only mentions that as an introduction to compare and contrast Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Yehuda's Mekil, even in a Mayan Sheyotza Mitchila, and even though there's a chshach that the karka around the Mayan might collapse, Mashke Mimenu afilu stay abal. Rabbi Meir was Mekil even in a case of stay abal, and even in a Mayan Hayotze Mitchila. But according to Rabbi Yehuda, whether it's a Mayan Sheyotza Mitchila or a Mayan Shelo Yotza Mitchila, it's always mutal hashkos a stay beis hashlachim. But you're never allowed to be mashke a stay beis habal. And our Mishnah holds that even in a case of a Mayan Shelo Yotza Mitchila, in the case of a stay beis habal, so Lo Yotza Mitchila means there's no chashash that it might collapse. It's an old Mayan. Nevertheless, you're not allowed to be mashke, stay beis habal. And that's exactly the Shita Rabbi Yehuda. So the final summary, bottom line of this sugya is that our Mishnah reflects the Shita Rabbi Yehuda. Now, we have 39 malachas on Shabbos, and each one has told us. Now, amongst the 39 avos malachos listed in the Mishnah Nayin Gimel in Masechet Shabbos, we have Charisha and Zriya, which means plowing and planting. Now the Gemara wants to know, where do we classify menakesh and mashke, which means menakesh means we take out the bad leaves and grass in order to improve the growth. And mashke means that there are already planted seeds and we add water to the seeds. And on this we have a machlokas, Rabba and Rav Yosef. Itmar, a menakesh, if a person pulls out the bad grass, and as a result, it's going to cause the good grass to grow at a faster pace. Or a mashke mayim lizroim, he pours water onto planted seeds, b'Shabbos, mishumay masridim bey. Okay, here we have a gigantic machlokas. What does it mean, mishumay masridim bey? According to one shita, in order to give a hasra on Shabbos, you must mention the name of the Av. And according to a second shita, you can mention the name of the Tolva. So you can say, don't be menakesh, or don't be mashke mayan. But the Gemara is asking a different question. The Gemara is asking, what if he mentioned the Av? That for sure is a valid hasra, but he may get it wrong. He might get it under the wrong Av. And if so, the hasra is completely batal mevutal. Rabba Omar Mishum Choresh. Why? Because, as we'll soon see, he's improving the ground. Rav Yosef Omar Mishum Zorea, he's improving the tzmachim, that's the hatzmacha. Omar Rabba Kavasi Didi Mestavra. I'll give you the logic that's very compelling in my direction. Madarko Shel Choresh L'Rapuye Ara. Charisha, plowing, is for the purpose of softening the ground, because hard ground will not produce anything. And Hainami Repuye Ara, Menakesh and Mashke Zroim are both activities that will improve the ground. And therefore they come under the Malach of Choresh. That's the Shita Rabbah. Amar Rav Yosef Kavasi Nidi Mestavra. There's compelling logic in my direction. It's Chai Mishum Zorea. Ma'adar Kashal Zorea Litzmuche Peira. What's the ultimate Meleches Machsheves? the purpose of a malacha of zriya, it's litzmuche peirik, it's to cause growth. Ochanami matzmiach peira. Here also through menakish mashkin zroim, he is growing, he's causing and improving the growth of whatever is growing in the field, and therefore that's called meleches oreh. Abai raises an objection to Rabbah, and in truth, as soon we'll see that his objection is equally against Rabbah and Rav Yosef. L'didoch kasha u'Rav Yosef kasha. L'didoch kasha mishum choresh inu mishum zoreh lo. Why are you claiming, Rabbah, that there's no meleches choresh? He's improving the ground. And now, Rav Yosef kasha, mishum zoreh in mishum choresh lo. Why is he chayav mishum zoreh, not mishum choresh? Choresh is improving the ground. That's exactly what he's doing. So why not be mechayev a person in these two cases, menakesh and mashkez roim, for both zoreh and choresh? For chiteim, and if you'll tell me you can't be chayav twice for one action, kol heim chadika tarte. If one act of malacha generates two malachas, then lo mechayev el echad, he's only chayav for one. You can't be chayav for two malachos. So this hamamim, with one action, the action has to be defined. It may have secondary definition or categorization, but what's the primary essential definition according to this hamamim? So Gemara rejects it. This hamamim is not correct. Ha'omar Rav Kahana, azomer v'tzarch li'etzim, chayiv shtayim. Achas mitzum notea v'achas mitzum kotzer. If a person prudes, right, he cuts off the branches, dried branches from a vineyard, from a vine, and at the same time that he's improving the vine, he also uses those branches as fuel for his fire. So he's chayiv both mishum notea, he's planting the tree, and number two, kotzer, he's cutting off that which he needs. So you see clearly that you can be chayiv shnayim even for one pa'ula. You only did one act of pruning. Kasha. So where has no answer to this? Esvei Rav Yosef l'Rabbah. I have a brisa. It says Hamanakish v'machape likilayim loke. He's taking out the bad grass. That's called menachesh, amongst the better grass. And therefore he causes that the grass that's left in the ground is going to produce, it's going to grow. Mechapa means he covers over seeds that were planted with dirt. In this case, he's chayav mishum kilayin, and he gets malchus. This is called klai zroim. The pasuk says it in Kedoshim. It says sadcha lo tizra kilayin. Rabbi Kiva Omer Afa Makayim. Even if he doesn't plant kilayim, but he allows the kilayim to continue to exist, and he doesn't uproot the kilayim, he gets malchus for that. And here there's a long discussion about what's called a lav chamber maisa. I mean, just to be makayim kilayim, why should he get malchus for that? And apparently the Gemara Makis on Daf Daled and Beis has a Mandiyama who says that you do get Malchus on a Lav Shem Bo Maisa. Maybe Rabbi Akiva holds you do get Malchus. But in truth, the Gemara there in Makis says that according to Rabbi Akiva, you don't get Malchus for a Lav Shem Bo Maisa. But what then does Rabbi Akiva mean by Mekayim Kalayim? Kigon Shebona Svivam Goder, Kadeshi is Kaimu. Around the Zroim, he builds a fence. But now Rav Yosef explains his kasha. According to my opinion, Menakesh is chayv mishum zoreya. Yamina mishum zoreya hainu das siras ria b'kalayim. The Torah says sod chalot tizra kalayim, And therefore, by doing a menakish b'kalayim, he violates the malacha of zriya, which the Torah prohibits. I will be dach according to you, Rabbi. The Yarbit, you hold that menakish is chayv mishum choresh. Charisha b'kalayim asira. The Torah doesn't prohibit charisha in kalayim. Charisha means you prepare the ground for the growth subsequently of kalayim. The Torah never prohibited that. So why should menakish b'kalayim be chayv malchus? Amolei mishum mekayim. What Rav is going to do is he's going to connect both parts of this brisa with the shita of Rabbi Akiva. Remember that Rabbi Akiva holds that mekayim kalayim is loka, and menakish is mekayim. Why? Because by taking out the bad grass, he's being mekayim the kalayim. So Gemara saw in Viktoni Sefer Rabbi Akiva Omer from mekayim bichal tanakama la mishum mekayimu. It's only Rabbi Akiva in the Sefer who introduces a breakthrough sheet of mekayim loka, but the Tanakama never accepted that. So Gemara answers to defend Rama. Kula Rabbi Akiva he. The whole brisa from top to bottom is Rabbi Akiva, and menakesh and mechaper b'kalayim loka because of mekayim. Uma tam kama. When Rabbi Akiva says af hamakayim, he's explaining my tam menakesh mechaper b'kalayim loka. The answer is mishum mekayim. Rabbi Akiva omer af hamakayim loka. Gemara said, what's the source for Rabbi Akiva? How does he know that Makayim v'Kalayim is Chayim? Tisanya, Sodcha lo Tizra Kalayim, Ein Liel is Orea. I only know if he plants it. I'm a Makayim, when he builds a fence around it, Minayin, how do you know yes Malchus? I'm a Lo Kalayim, Sodcha lo. As you sort of rearrange the words of the Pasuk, and the Kalayim at the end of the Pasuk goes to the beginning of the Pasuk, and you read it Kilayim Sadcha Lo. Sadcha Lo means not to be Makayim Kilayim. Tonight we learned in our Mishnah Mashkim Beis Hashlachim B'Moed U'B'Shvius. Gemara says Bishlema B'Moed. In the case of Moed, I understand the whole discussion here of why we need Pseda to be matir, because we're in a bind. On the one hand, we want to protect against Pseda. On the other hand, we don't want to get involved in Tirch. So they were matir being mashke Beis HaShlachim, because if he doesn't irrigate a Beis HaShlachim, he's going to lose all his parents. El B'Shvius, when the Mishnah speaks about irrigating a field, a Beis HaShlachim field on Shvius, Bein Lamadi or Mishum Zoreh, Bein Lamadi or Mishum Choresh, Zriya v'Charisha b'Shvius Mishari. Whether or not I go with the Shita of Rav Yosef, which is that Mashke Mayim Lizroim is Zoreh, or if I go with the Shita of Rama, the Mashke Zraim Mayim Lizroim is Choresh. It matters not. With regard to Shvius, the Torah prohibits both Zriya and Charisha. They're both awesome in the Torah during Shvius. And Ein Koch B'Yad Chachomim Lakar Isa Torah B'Makom Hefsei. The Chachomim don't have the authority to permit a violation of an Isa Torah for the sake of preventing a loss. The Mishnah is addressing the case of Shvius during our time, and the Isser of working the field during the seventh year in our time is only the Rabbanot, and the Rabbanot would make hill in a case of Hefsek. So therefore, you're allowed to be Mashke Beis HaShalchim b'Shvius, and Abai adds Rebbe, he, and our Mishnah reflects the sheet of Rebbe, who holds that Shvius Bismana says the Rabbanon. To Sanya, we learned to the Brisa, Rebbe Omer, when it says in the Torah that we're commanded in the mitzvah Shmitas Ksafim. This is in Dvarim Perek Tezvav. And it says in the pasuk v'zed var hashmita shmot. The rest of the pasuk says shmot kol baal mashe yodo asher yasher b'reyu lo yigos es reyu ves achiv. And the Torah repeats itself unnecessarily with the word shmita. It starts the pasuk by saying hashmita, and then it says shmot. So why do I need both words? And the answer is b'shnei shmitas hakosav v'dara achar shmitas karka v'achar shmitas ksafim. Shmitas ksaf means you don't collect any outstanding debts, and shmitas karka means you don't work the land. What do we derive from this hekage between shmitas karka and shmitas ksafim? Bisman shatom mishamid karka, atom mishamid ksafim. Bisman sheyatom mishamid karka, iatom mishamid ksafim. So you see here that everything depends upon Zman. There's a Zman where you are Mishamed Karka, you're not allowed to do Avodah the Karka. And during that period of time, when you're not allowed to do Avodah Karka, is Gam Mishamed Ksafim, you're required to relinquish your claim to loans, outstanding debts. You're not allowed to be Moshe, you can't force him to pay. But then there's another Zman, which is Iatom Mishamed Karka. There's no Isra Avodas Karka. And then, during that period of time, you don't have to be Mishamed Ksafim, meaning you're allowed to collect the debts. But we see clearly that there's a Zman when Shmitas Ksafim, or Shmitas Karka is not no Heges Min Torah. And that's Bizman Hazeh. Now, what's the source for the fact that Shmitas Karka ain't no Hegis Bizman Hazeh? Rashi elsewhere, not here, but in Masechet Gittin, says that it's derived from a drasha. We don't have this drasha now in Talmud Bavli, but it does appear in the Yerushalmi. And it says, V'zed dvar Shmita Shmot. Achas Shmitas Yovel, v'achas Shmitas Shvius. Interesting. So it means that Shvius depends upon Yovel. Bizman hazeh ein Yovel noeg. We don't have Yovel today. Why? Because we need Kol Yoshvei Oleh. And Bizman hazeh ein Kol Yoshvei Eretz Yisrael Nimtzoyim B'Eretz Yisrael. So therefore, Shvius, which is dependent upon Yovel, ain't no Hegis Bizman hazeh. Because since we don't have Yovel, we don't have Kol Yoshvei Oleh, therefore, ipso facto, we don't have Shvius. Hence, Shvius Bizman hazeh is Rabbanon, and the Rabbanon would make it b'makom psein. Okay, then this is where we'll stop for today. And I'll take this opportunity to wish you a Shabbat Shalom. Thank you so much.